Hello and welcome to episode 39 of the Perth to Paisley Podcast, discussing the ever-disappointing Heart and Midlothian Football Club. The Jambos have won just 2 of their last 9 matches in Scotland's second tier after churning out another pathetic performance in a dire draw 0-0 with Dunfermline, a stalemate at East End Park. I am one of your hosts, Adam Kennedy, and I'm joined by Daniel McIver as per usual. How are we doing this week, Daniel?
Oh, it's going great. Everything to do with this football club is utterly fantastic. And I'm delighted to be here discussing, as you said, an absolutely dreadful 0-0. And let's just peel back the curtain immediately. We don't know how long this is going to be. We don't know how we're going to drag the arse out of this. But we're going to try because we've got some help.
Well said. Obviously, we're delighted that we've managed to secure this guest once again. Not only was he the first non-Hearts supporter to appear on the podcast, he's obviously the first person making his second appearance on Perth to Paisley. My Fife friend, Dunfermline Athletic diehard, Cammy Anderson. Cameron, are you delighted to be back on a Hearts-related podcast to chat about your beloved Pars?
I mean, I think if the game wasn't as terrible as it was, I would have been a bit happier, but obviously buzzing to speak to the Pailies as always, so hopefully we managed to stretch what was, I mean, a really, really dull game. If we manage to get this past 10 minutes, I think we'll be doing well.
Well, it's funny you say 10 minutes because I've got to give props to the Pars for dragging out 9 minutes worth of highlights, given, like you say, it was total dross, and having seen the Arbroath highlights recently on Hearts TV, they lasted for 90 seconds, so I mean, you're doing better than that, but I just hate when Hearts do this to me. It's just because I slate them every week doesn't mean they have to save an even worse performance than usual and even less action for me to discuss as host. But if you do want to chat Hearts occasionally with Daniel and I, probably doing a better job of it than me by all means, then you can, courtesy of Big Hearts Talk of the Tune calls. Now, you should know the script by now, but if you're still lost, you can head on over to bighearts.co.uk and find the Talk of the Tune programme on there. I was in a call last Tuesday night, seeing what's become a regular community on Zoom, but the guys are obviously great fun, a good laugh, and very welcoming. So if you fancy a gab about the Gorgate, then get yourselves involved. Of course, we are here to discuss the lack of action. Cammy, after probably the worst week in living memory supporting Hearts, Robbie Nielsen spoke about needing to sort of take it on the chin and wanting to get back to winning ways. As an outsider, what have you made of Hearts and their collapse in the past month or so? Because the last fortnight in particular, given the Broda defeat, it's been absolute torture for the pair of us.
I mean, it's made me feel a bit better about Pars' form, seeing the kind of runaway league leaders absolutely shitting themselves. And, I mean, I've got to admit, I found the kind of raging Hearts fans under every single tweet. It is quite funny. But, yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. I just can't really pinpoint why he's collapsed completely. Obviously, that fantastic start. And very similar, I think I mentioned when I was on the podcast earlier on in the season, Nielsen's Dundee United team raced at the blocks and just fell off a cliff come Christmas time. And it's been pretty much the same for Hearts. Just haven't really turned up in the league for, the best part of about 3 months now. And, I mean, granted, they've not really had to do much. They've been clear for a long, long time, and I mean, that's 1 or 2 wins away from wrapping the title up, but I mean, this certainly isn't the way that I think either you or Daniel were expecting, and I'm saying just you, Peter. I think the whole Hearts fan base were expecting a 27-game unbeaten season, winning every game 6-0, but I mean, it's been absolutely atrocious in recent weeks, and it's just weird. I think you Peter, are going to certainly be glad that there's only 4 games left this season. It's done and over and done with then, and then you're back where ultimately he's deserved to be. Whether the team that he's currently have will be the team that he's largely field next season, I'm not too sure, and whether the manager will even be the same one, but at least it was kind of, I think as you would have all hoped, it was the one season, you've got the job done. It's not been pretty, but yeah, I'm saying you're really going to complain. That's all Hearts fans have done for the past 6 months, but I mean, yeah, I think Hearts are going to just be glad to see the back of the Championship. I think the Championship, once again this season, has shown that it is absolutely mental. You're not going to be able to guess anything. And yes, Hearts have kind of ran away with it, but even still, it's not been quite as comfortable as you'd maybe think. Obviously, I think it's 11 points now currently separating Hearts and Rafe in second. Rafe, I think, have a game in hand. But, I mean, yes, it's still a decent enough gap, but I think Hearts will obviously win the league in the next week or two, and that will be that, and he'll quickly forget this season. hopefully, for your sake anyway.
I think for me, I'm sort of looking at, you touched on Nielsen's United team there. I think I'm realising just how dependent they were on Lawrence Shankland at some points to actually dig them out that grave. I mean, the Brora defeat is one that's obviously, this is where the frustration comes from with the cup competitions. What's the worst Dunfermline defeat ever? Is it Hafnarfjordur? Like, our hearts as hopeless as Hafnarfjordur?
I mean, I think I'd probably say the worst defeat in recent memory was the match last Tuesday when they got pumped off Raith 5-1. That was some laugh. I mean, yeah, Hafnarfjordur was pretty embarrassing. BK Häcken was also pretty embarrassing because they were absolutely nobodies at the time. Well, who even knows BK Häcken and Hafnarfjordur? And there's me just enraged the HMFC Sweden and Icelandic divisions, but listen, there were nobodies, and the Pars were obviously quite a good team at that time. Had obviously got multiple cup finals, and yeah, I think the expectation at the time was certainly that we were going to beat these minnows, but yeah, there's been some honking results for the Pars, and yeah, as I say, that one just last week was definitely the worst in recent memory anyway.
You know, it's bad when I hadn't even heard of Hafnarfjordur till you mentioned them to me as a result of that back at college. But Daniel, Robbie spoke of the Brora defeat and the Queen's loss as disappointments, or as a collective disappointment in his pre-match presser. He spoke about us being 10 points clear coming into obviously the clash with Dunfermline. Previously it was 16, then it became 13. He's mentioned the good things that have happened this season. Are you remaining as upbeat as he is? Because with every passing week, I'm struggling to see these so-called positives, if I'm honest.
It's going to get to the point where the final day we need to go to Starks and get a win. It's like, listen, we're a point ahead. It's fine, we're still a point ahead. It doesn't matter.
It's all in our hands.
Exactly.
You control your own destiny.
I mean, Jesus Christ, man. Listen, it's become a theme of these podcasts that people have noticed when I don't host them, I'm a bit more emotional, apparently. That's apparently a thing. And I'm kind of leaning into that now because when I saw his comments, and again, we've made it very clear, I don't give a shit what managers and players say in the press because it's all bollocks. But I know that a lot of our fan base and most fan bases do. So when I saw that from her, I was like, Robbie, you're really only helping yourself here, mate. Like, I get it. We have had positives in the sense of, as Cammy mentioned, we've never really looked like we're not going to win the league in terms of the points total. If you watch us every week, you'd say they're no win in the league. But in terms of the actual points total, we've never had anybody challenging us that have actually kept up with us. Dunfermline did at the start of the season, then Raith have done recently, but they've both done it in a way that they've not picked up points where we've dropped them. But there is no you can't make positives there now, because as we said last week, and as everybody has been saying from the Hearts' perspective, the minimum expectation this year was to win this league. Now, Cammy was right. There was definitely a area, section, number of Hearts fans who will go, if we don't win every game this season, it's a failure. If we don't have it won by Christmas, even if that's not even mathematically possible, it's a failure. Blah, blah, blah. But the majority of Hearts fans, I'd say, were going, right, we should be winning this league. So therefore, we're going to look to the Cups as a potential outlet of success, or we just hope it's like last time in the sense of we want to be entertained when we're doing it. We want to potentially see some youth players come through that haven't featured very prominently yet. And none of that has happened. Obviously, the big two results have been knocked out the Cup by Alloa in the League Cup and then knocked out by Brora in the Scottish Cup. So you go, right, okay, they're gone. And then the stat that I saw this week was that we haven't fielded a single player in the league under 21 at all. There has been 0 minutes for someone under the age of 21 in the league. Now, yes, Scott McGill has played in the Cups twice, and I wish that was much more and what I'm playing in the league. But that's ridiculous. Like, what is going on?
I mean, it is a big frustration of mine, and it has been for a little while, because when you look at it, Craig Gordon, Andy Irving and Christoph Berra's cameos, they're the sort of only academy graduates that seem to obviously gain first team minutes, and 2 of them are in their mid-30s. But Cammy, obviously Daniel touched on the cup competitions there. Dunfermline, I think you were knocked out the Betfred by the eventual winners St Johnstone, that right?
Yeah, lost to them on penalties, which, I mean, when you lose to the eventual winners, I guess you can't be too sad. I think we did play quite well on that night. We were not in too good form at the time. That was kind of around the time we started falling off. We'd been beaten by Morton just a few days before, and then that's kind of when wheels kind of fell off. And yeah, I mean, we kind of reacted well. Obviously took them to extra time, and about 2 seconds into extra time they scored, and it was like, right, there we go. Granted, we managed to get an equaliser, but then yeah, the penalty shootout was just an absolute shambles. And then, as you say, knocked out the cup, the Scottish Cup by Morton once again on penalties, and yeah, just embarrassing. It was one of the worst games I think I've ever seen in my life. The Pars Morton games, obviously, for those of you who maybe recognise me from the Pure Championship pod, my co-host and I, Chris, we always kind of big this up as the Pure Championship derby, and it has possibly been the worst fixture in Scottish football about 5 times this season, because we've bigged it up all the time. It is honking, and it's just, I think it goes kind of for the whole league. Granted that the most recent meeting was in the cup, but aside from yourselves, but I mean, I guess you could probably include yourselves, I think this has actually been a really poor championship this season. A lot of people will maybe go, well, it's fantastic. You've got Raith Rovers on 36, and others are kind of close by. There's only a few points in it, and it's great. It's hard to kind of say it's been great, because there's just so many teams that have been absolutely honking, and nobody can really overtake anyone. It's been really poor, as much as you'd think it would maybe be fantastic, given the Championship's reputation of just being an absolute clusterfuck of a league, if I'm allowed to say that.
Oh, of course.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you, because, I mean, I'm not going to ask you whether Raith Rovers have had a decent season because everyone else has been shocking. What I was going to ask you was, is that been kind of the biggest frustration, that when Hearts have picked up a shocking result, as has been the case quite frequently recently, that Dunfermline and your Dundee's Raith Rovers haven't been able to capitalise? Or are you just thinking, we'll settle for playoffs and then whatever happens, happens?
I mean, I think all 3 of the clubs you just mentioned, the goal would have been probably playoffs. No, Raith Rovers just came up, and Chris and I very wrongly said they'd go right back down. But to be fair, we didn't know much about them. We follow the Championship, we're not following League One. And yeah, Raith have taken, I think, everyone by surprise, and they've kind of, I mean, I was going to say they've signed well ahead of next season. They've picked up a few bodies. They started well by signing Tam Lang from Clyde, and then things have just got a bit progressively worse.
Christoph Berra and James Keaton's
Dario Zanata, and then Berra.
Hearts rejects.
Like, for a defence that has less mobility than a rock in Davidson and Benedictus, to then bring in Christoph Berra, who I don't think's moved more than about 5 metres in the past 4 seasons. I mean, it's odd, and yeah, I think all 3 teams will probably be kicking themselves that they never managed to capitalise on Hearts in their kind of poor form. But I think ultimately the poor forms come too little too late for the others to kind of capitalise on it. But I think certainly, I've said it so many times, that there could have definitely been a title race. When you look at how Hearts have kind of collapsed, every other team just collapsed a few weeks before, and thankfully for your sake, Hearts hadn't by that time. And yeah, it's just, I don't think there's been a team in the Championship who you could say has had a really fantastic season. Everyone's just kind of had 1 or 2 reruns, and it's just been, complete kind of free fall for a lot of clubs. Inverness have obviously kind of picked up in recent weeks, and that was something I didn't really see happening. But yeah, it's a really odd one. But just speaking sole on my Pars, I think if we do manage to make the playoffs, it would be nothing short of a miracle, and that's the promotion playoffs, not the relegation one, because if we end up in them, I wouldn't be the slightest bit surprised.
Daniel, you go along with that?
Yeah, basically, I think Cammy's spot on when you mentioned there that, yes, it has been exciting, but a lot of that hasn't been down to the bloody hell, there's about 6 teams in this league who could do really well. It's more, bloody hell, there's about 7 teams in this league that could all go down. Like, the quality has been so up and down, because as you say, listen, Raith, on some occasions, have beaten us at home, have beaten you in the Fife Derby in very dominant fashion, and then in other times, they've been beaten off Alloa, dropped points to Arbroath, been battered off us. Like, no one can form any form of consistency. And as you say, the only reason that we've been so clear is that up until the Dundee game on the 2nd of January, we were reasonably consistently getting results every single week. A lot of the performances weren't up to the level that many Hearts fans wanted them to be. However, we were consistently not losing, and that alone was enough. And we just never drew, actually. We went to like game 19 without drawing or something like that. Whereas, like, you lot, Cammy, just went through a period where you had like as many draws as wins.
Yeah, I mean, it was atrocious. That kind of Christmas, kind of New Year spell was what was hard watching the Pars. And granted, the past few weeks haven't been much better, but yeah, it's been so disappointing when you consider how we started the season. It did look like we could have perhaps challenged Hearts at least further than we ultimately did. We obviously went top when we beat Hughes back in November, and that's, I mean, I said that Morton game just after Christmas was where the wheels fell off, but ultimately we peaked far too early. We beat Hughes and it was all, yes, we can really do this, and then the likes of Dom Thomas, he's done nothing since. And it's like it's difficult. Obviously, we managed to bring in Craig Whiten from yourselves in January. He's managed to score a few goals, and it's been good. But just there's been far too many players whose early season form just is non-existent now. And yeah, it's just, as I say, I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up in the relegation playoffs, because we're in complete free fall. And obviously, we'll get on to discuss the game from the weekend and the very limited action in that, but. The Pars, I think I said to Adam a few times when we were texting back and forth, I said to him I couldn't see us picking up points in any of our like next three heading into that kind of free of Dundee, Rafe and Hearts. The fact we got 1 point was a miracle.
I was going to say it's a tough trio, and obviously the Dundee result's bound to be a disappointment, but of course nothing is as damning as the Fife Derby defeat, Cammy. Dunfermline making 4 changes heading into their clash with Hearts. Excuse me. I was amazed that there's a big Lithuanian that somehow avoided Gorgie has come in to start. The big centre half. What's his name?
Big Vitas Gasparitas. I think that's how we're pronouncing it. I'm not sure. I've heard so many Gasparitas, Gaspitas, and whatever. Close enough.
I'm going with Big Vitas. Anyway, he
that's the easy way.
He came in to start the centre half. Lewis Mayo moving into midfield. Ian Wilson and Dom Thomas, obviously you alluded to him earlier, the match winner the last time that the two teams met in the Kingdom, came into midfield, and Declan McManus came into partner Kevin O'Hara, given Craig Whiten's ineligibility. What were you thinking once you saw that lineup? Because to me, it appeared pretty attacking on paper.
Well, I mean, when you consider Tuesday's lineup and the lineup that had no idea what they were even doing, so much so that Josh Edwards had to get a bit of paper, and he still had no idea what he was doing. We had fullbacks playing in centre mid. We had, honestly, it was. I think that would be the kind of thing that the SFA would show in their coaching courses. Like, this is not how you coach a game. Like I'm saying the first however long, just the whole thing was a complete shambles. Just we changed system. We had 5 at the back, 3 at the back, 4 at the back, 16 at the back. Honestly, it was just. I don't think anyone had any idea what was going on, and we were well beaten. I think as much as we were poor, Rafe Rovers deserve a great deal of credit because they were absolutely sensational. And when you consider it was only about 5 or 6 weeks ago that we battered them 4-1, I definitely could. Well, I'm saying I couldn't have seen this coming based on recent form. Yeah, I probably could have seen it coming, but not quite like this, because this was. I mean, yeah, without a doubt, the worst performance we've seen from the Pars this season and in recent seasons. It was just embarrassing. Nothing worked. We just didn't bother. And I mean, I think many after the game thought, right, that's it for Crawford. And the fact he got Saturday's game, everyone's like, oh no, here we go again. We'd already shipped 8 goals in the 2 previous games. I was expecting to ship several more. And the fact we managed to keep you to a clean sheet, and I mean, really, you didn't do much. I think Liam Boyce had a header saved by Vaughan Williams, but I think that was really it in terms of chances. I was like, that was a decent chance for Hearts. But other than that, I think we kind of limited you to scraps, and not that it was difficult. It was certainly better than Tuesday night. And I mean, I think before the game, I would have taken a point. But when you consider how the game went, as much as we've already discussed in the podcast how little action there was, when you consider the better the chances in this match fell to the Pars, you think Scott Banks had a chance early doors, Kevin O'Hara had one as well. Big Vitas hit the bar. Ewan Murray had a free header as well that Craig Gordon saved really well. And I mean, we could have won this one by a few, despite not playing that well. So yeah, it is frustrating. But again, we've taken 4 points from 9 against Hearts this season. I think I'd have signed up for that at the start of the season. But yeah, it's just it's an annoying one, kind of considering how the game went.
Have you been looking at my notes as to what I'm going to ask you?
I have no idea.
Because genuinely, I'm just scratching out material as we go on. But Daniel, I'll of course turn to you. The mighty Jam Tarts resorted back to a dreaded 4-2-3-1 after defeat to the Toonhamers. The best goalkeeper in the country came back between the sticks. Michael Smith also returned, given his international exploits with Northern Ireland. He had Shea Logan making his debut, obviously then playing the full 90 after his arrival from Aberdeen. Andy Halliday pulled his quad in training, I was informed on Twitter, but then Robbie said it was a thigh problem, and thus Big Pete came in for him. And your wee mate Ewan Henderson was rewarded with a start at Armin Nandwili's expense. So 5 changes in total. Would it be fair to say that those were expected heading into our clash with the Powers?
Yes. I agreed with 4 of the changes. Right, listen. I understand that Ewan Henderson deserved his start.
I knew this would be the one that you disagreed.
Right.
You'd want to see Big Nando up with boys, same as me.
Of course, because why would you drop him? Why would you drop the only signing apart from Craig Gordon that's been good this season? Why would you drop the guy who has played 9 games, scored 5, set up 2, and had 1 wrongly disallowed? That is mental. And then he came on the last 20 minutes, and Dunfermline didn't know what to do with him. They had their massive Lithuanian, and for some reason never got him to mark Nandwili ever.
I couldn't believe that either.
He marked Popescu.
I thought he pocketed Boyce really well. I actually thought, sorry to me, I thought that Big Vitas was probably their man of the match, to be honest.
I thought he was very good.
To few opportunities, but
carry
on, sorry.
I did think he was very good. However, I do get why Ewan Henderson deserves a start. He's come off the bench twice and has looked like a football player, so therefore is better than whoever he had replaced. But it was just another time where Ewan Henderson's started a game and has done nothing during a game. However, the 4 other changes I really agreed with. Craig Gordon, I don't need to say anything about him because he's the best goalie in the country, as you said. Without him, we'd be 7th. Michael Smith coming in, it's just like having your dad come home. You just feel safer. You just feel like, alright, okay, we're not going to be awful. We just might be quite bad. Shea Logan, we gave Shea Logan a whole load of shit on the podcast.
We'll come to that.
Right, we'll come to that. And then Peter Haring, for me, apart from Gordon and Logan, was the biggest positive of the game because Haring looked like Peter Haring again, which was amazing to see. He just looked calm. He was dispossessed a couple of times, but for the majority of the game, he was just controlling everybody. He was just kind of discussing like basic things that need to happen in a football game. And we've not really had anyone do that at all. And it just felt lovely.
Cammy, obviously, Daniel and I, like we say, have given Shea... Well, it's probably more so me as given the signing of Shea Logan some stick. But you were obviously very disrespectful as well. Given you said, and I quote, "Mad to think days ago Vitas was playing against Immobile, Barella, Donnarumma, and now he's up against Shea Logan." How dare you?
I was just about to bring that up because when you were mentioning Vitas, I was about to say no wonder he done such a good job against Boyce when he was. But yeah, I mean, as you say, the fact he wasn't on Nandwi was quite an odd one. But I felt kind of near the end of the game when, I mean, as I said, he didn't really have many chances, but he did kind of come into it near the end, and I was like, right, here we go. This is Sapar's typical. We're going to get punished for not taking those chances early doors. But I mean, yeah, Vitas, I think the change was absolutely necessary after Tuesday night's game where we were atrocious. Obviously, as I said, 8 goals over the 2 previous games, and we needed a defensive change. And for the first kind of start in a Pars jersey, kind of came in during January. I think he's only played once before this one. Didn't really get to see much in the previous one, but yeah, absolutely solid in this one, and hopefully we see more of him because I think he's signed up for the next 2.5 years. Plenty of rumours that Ewan Murray, the club captain's away in the summer, out of contract.
He's out of contract,
so,
isn't he? Yeah.
Tons of like rumours about Aberdeen, and I mean, if Aberdeen sign him, good luck Aberdeen. Is all I'm going to say, because I think a lot there was a lot said about Ewan Murray, and I was one of his big, huge fans at the start of the season. Obviously, the Dom-Tom connection at corners was basically cheating every single game. It just seemed to be Dom-Tom corner or cross into the box, Ewan Murray heads in, goal, and yeah, it was easy. And then Ewan Murray, I think a lot of people see the goal record and go, right, he's really good, we should bring him in. But people forget he's not scored in months. It's like it made him look really good early on, and then his defence, granted, it's not the only, there's not only one man who makes up the defence, but the whole kind of defence has been suspect for a while, and yeah, I wouldn't be too sad to see him go now, having kind of seen him perform for the majority of the season, unlike the start of the season. That's
interesting, because I think I tapped him up as a sort of potential signing for us, obviously on that pre-contract, given I've said we've been in need of defensive recruits for a while. I wanted to get more about the big Lithuanian. Where on earth did you get him?
Well, he came, I think it was kind of on a recommendation from a former kind of Lithuanian defender, Andrei Skerla. Obviously, he played with Crawford during one of his spells at the club, and I think the Pars have always kind of said we'll not leave any stone unturned when it comes to recruitment, but I don't quite think we expected to bring in some random Lithuanian boy from the Lithuanian top flight. And as I say, I think it was maybe just a wee recommendation from Skerla. I know Vitas certainly mentioned Skerla in his interview and kind of just said, we'd spoken about what it's like and stuff. But I mean, that's the kind of random signing, kind of like your Faisal Al-Bakhtoui a few seasons ago, where you pull them out of nowhere and they go on to kind of become a cult hero just because they're completely random in Scottish football. I mean, I guess it's different for Hearts, who've had the fair share of foreigners and Lithuanians, but for like a club like the Pars, it's very rare that we've got any non-British players, and in most cases any non-Scottish players. So yeah, to bring in a Lithuanian out of nowhere, and one who's like 6'4" or 6'5", is a man mountain. And as you said, kind of recalling my comment, he's a Lithuanian international as well. Granted, Lithuania aren't the most fantastic nations, but when you consider some of the players he's up against, I mean, you can only be too happy with the fact that he's playing against the likes of your Immobiles, who are scoring 20, 30 goals in Serie A each season. I mean, I think that's fantastic. We've got them signed up for the next 2.5 seasons. Also, that was starting January, so about just over 2 seasons left now. And I mean, yeah, fingers crossed it works out, but certainly the early showings from him are very promising.
What are you trying to say about the Lithuania national team? One of our club legends was a former Lithuania defender.
Fucking most of our starting 11 from about 10 years ago was the starting 11 for the Lithuania national team.
Oh, I see when Cammy was on about the scout there, I was expecting some recommendation from Vladimir Romanov, but never mind. Obviously, if we do talk about the action, that first half made for grim viewing from a Hearts perspective. I thought Aaron McInnes had the first real half chance with a team effort straight at Owain Vaughan Williams, but Cammy, Scott Banks on loan from Crystal Palace spawns a glorious opportunity to put the hosts ahead, following a perfectly weighted Declan McManus through ball. And I actually thought McManus had a really good game, but what a chance to break the deadlock. How gutted were you when you saw that sail past the post?
Would say I'm surprised, but I'm not. It's just kind of been the way things have been for the Pars. We miss our chances, we typically get punished for it, and I think if it had fallen to kind of your McManus or your Kevin O'Hara, I think we could have been looking at a different story. Of course, Kevin O'Hara later had a chance, but certainly a bit more difficult. Banks had kind of got through on goal kind of on his own, really. The Hearts defender wasn't too close to him, and it was kind of a bit later on as well. We had Josh Edwards, a left back, get into a really good position, and I mean, it's just one of those where you think, why can't that be a striker or someone a bit more attacking than your fullback, who's I don't think he's ever scored in his life. And yeah, it's just, obviously you can't always plan for these things. Players make runs and all that, and I think, yeah, we probably could have been 2, if not 3 up in that first half. As boring and as terrible as it was, as we said, the Power's done a fantastic job of making it look a bit more exciting, because just for large spells, I just completely zoned out. And I've said on a recent Pure Championship podcast, it's gotten to be a bit of a chore watching the Pars. And obviously, I love the Pars. I'll always be there every week. Obviously, when we can get back, I'll always watch the stream and whatnot. But there's just a complete disconnect, I feel. It's just, whether that's just because it's watching on the screen rather than actually being there at the game, it just doesn't feel the same. But to miss the chances, I think, just given the whole kind of mood at the club at the moment, I think as I said earlier on, many were expecting Crawford to be away, and then for him to then be there on the bench on Saturday. I think everyone was just a bit like, oh dear, here we go again. And I think everyone was just hoping to not be embarrassed, and thankfully we weren't embarrassed. And as I said, I think it was a much better performance on Tuesday night, and I think now it's a case of whether we can actually kick on and build on this. Have we had our bad run of form, and can we get kind of results starting with Ayr away on Saturday? But I mean, if I'm going to be completely honest, I doubt it. This is a team who are just in free fall. We look lost. It's such a shame considering how well it started. And you look at the team, and even taking my power specs off, there's players in here. Granted, probably none would get in the Hearts team. You'd maybe say Scott Banks could get in that Hearts team, if we're going to be honest.
Couple talented players, mate.
Fucking all of them could get in at this stage. I'm not even going to lie.
But I mean, it's one of those. It's a good squad. It's just Crawford hasn't managed to get the best out of them, and you want to see him do well. But I think obviously you haven't asked me this yet, but if it's going to come up, I may as well say it. I don't think Crawford will be there next season, and I'd like to say I'd hope he's not either, because I think with us kind of having a squad that's mainly made up of low Ds and players with deals up at the end of the season, the players that have kind of got left over make an interesting core, and I think that would be a perfect kind of place for a new manager to come in. Crawford's had 2.5 seasons now. Granted, the first one he had that kind of shit show of a team put together by AJ, who just completely down tools, and then in the second season, last season, it was obviously cut short due to COVID, and things were going quite well, but again we completely collapsed and ultimately missed out on the playoffs. Not that they were played or whatever. And then this season, it's just been kind of downhill for months and months now.
It's intriguing when you talk about a disconnect with the club. I mean, welcome to our world, mate. Daniel Hart's then responded after the Banks miss with an opportunity of their own. Aaron McInnes hits one on the spin. I could not believe for the life of me that he didn't slip Shea Logan in as he was overlapping on the right. Firstly, I'm delighted that's the case given I slated him. And secondly, I was very tempted to cover it with a first goal scorer bet to cover sort of the egg on my face that would then happen. But would it be fair to say that he was perhaps our best performer over the 90 minutes, Shea Logan? His first full match, I think, since August, I believe.
Over the 90 minutes, I'd say yeah. Craig Gordon was probably our best player in terms of what he meant to the game. But look, I was about to say there when you were describing it, I was like, I have no idea what moment you're talking about, because we created nothing all game apart from the header that Boyce created that Cammy mentioned earlier in terms of a chance that you go, that was actually a goal scoring opportunity. However, you then mentioned Logan's run, and hey, Logan's run. No one will get that reference. It's a film. It's a good film. That should be a thing. Why haven't the Hearts Twitter done that? Photoshopped him into Logan's run. See, this is why I should be the Twitter. It'd be much better. Anyway, he was so good. He was so good. And it was one of those performances that go, that's not going to happen in 3 games. Because it's what happened with Aaron McInnes, where he came in, he's not in the bubble yet of despair that is Heart of Midlothian. So he's coming in. Yeah, exactly. So he's coming in with ambition, with desire, going, I know what kind of player I am. This will be great. He was getting the ball for deep, driving forward, creating chances. 3 games later, Aaron McInnes gets the ball, turns around, has potential of space to move into, but turns around and plays it back to Herring for most of that game. Shea Logan currently, in that whole 90 minutes, he was constantly looking forward, constantly making forward passes, only went backwards or horizontal when he absolutely had to, was making great runs. In 3 games when we play Inverness, he'll just be tucking in, playing it backwards to Halkett and moving back, because that's what seems to happen now. When you come here, you lose all form of flair, potential, attacking mindset, and just go into your shell. The 4-2-3-1 just envelops you and makes you feel sad. And just, I will. That is the one positive, that Shea Logan made us look like fucking idiots, because he was really good. And if he's like that for the remaining 4 games, I'll be delighted. And now with the injury, maybe this was the plan. Robbie knew AD White was going to get hurt, So therefore, he was like, right, see, now I've got cover. Because now, especially with White being hurt, I haven't heard how severe the injury is, but it's cover.
Yeah, I mean, I think he alluded to it that Andy Halliday should be back, so I don't know whether
Great.
he'll come in.
Oh, that's fucking riveting.
Well, no, I was going to say he might come in at left back for Alloa, but
yeah, that's fair.
You obviously mentioned McAneff there. Cammy was talking about it earlier, sort of this kind of square pegs and round holes, isn't it? I mean, we seem to be the best at that, but Cammy, if the Scott Banks miss was a warning, then Declan McManus robbing Andy Irving and slipping in Kevin O'Hara probably should have been Hearts' wake-up call. Were you perhaps surprised that the Pars getting that much joy down the right-hand side? Because as far as my eye could see, countless times it was that exact sort of attack in behind the aforementioned Eddie White. You've mentioned Dom Thomas there. He seems to have gone off the boil, but had wing play been like a key theme of your guys' season?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the most part we have tended to, I don't think that sounds right, but I'll go with it anyway, put the ball down the wings and try and kind of work it in from there. And I mean, it's a bit weird, I can't recall us scoring many headers. We did score a header in the defeat against Rafe Rovers, Banks putting it in for O'Hara to head in well. And I mean, given O'Hara's recent form, he's scored a few since he's kind of come into the starting lineup. I was expecting him to put this one away. And yeah, I think that was certainly should have been a wake-up call for Hearts. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, there was that Josh Edwards miss as well. It's an annoying one, because when you're playing the kind of league leaders, this is a game where you win this and it gives you such confidence. Yes, we're miles away, like miles behind you. It's 15, 16 points. So yeah, if you look at it that way, maybe Robbie Nielsen's right. You do have a 15, 16 point gap, but over 4 for 5th place. But yeah, we'll not let that get in the way of the narrative. But yeah, I mean, I think this was a game that I think could have really kind of changed the remainder of the season for the Pars. We've got about a handful of games left, and I think had we won this one, it could have really turned things on their head and really helped us kind of push for the playoffs. But we're currently sitting in them at the moment, but whether we're in them at the end of the season, as I say, I am doubtful.
Obviously, in a lacklustre first half, Daniel, Hearts created obviously very little. I just felt as though we looked to sort of make our set pieces count in the rare opportunities that we got. There was a chance that Liam Boyce had, not the one that Cammy mentioned, the header from the GMS cross, that came in the second half, but there was an Andy Irving corner sort of taken short with a 1-2, and I felt as though he could have perhaps done a bit better because he evaded his marker. Would you go along with that, or was that a bit harsh considering he's sort of coming at it from an angle?
I think it's a wee bit harsh. He probably should hit the target because he puts it wide,
Yeah, I think so,
Yeah, he probably should hit the target, but he is, as you say, coming at it at a weird angle. But the first half was just, for me, summarised by the fact, as we've mentioned, Dunfermline had like 2 or 3, you'd almost describe them as sitters. I know you can never really describe a like open play, run and move a sitter, but there were massive chances that they didn't even put on target. We didn't even come close to one of those chances in the first half. And it's like, listen, there's a narrative around us as a fan base, and part of it is justified, that we're arrogant, that we think that, for God's sake, it's a championship. As Cammy mentioned at the start of this, we should be winning 6-0 every week. I'm not of that mindset. What I am of a mindset of is that regardless of your home or away, you should create a chance in a game where you're playing against a team who from November have picked up 17 points in the league. And we didn't do that.
I couldn't believe that when I saw it either. I mean, Cammy touched on the form there, but you know what? I just look at it and think, how can the players not get it into their heads that this was a contender for the league, and ultimately, as a side that is one of the better in the division, should probably claim a playoff place despite Cammy's negativity, I might say, but I don't know.
It's not even that. What it is that even if the players were like, nah, I'm not doing that, I don't view Dunfermline as that, what they should be being told is, if you win this tonight, we can win the league in the next game at home on the telly. Surely that is enough impetus. It should bring about the required desire to go, all right, okay, listen, we're in a bad situation just now, performances haven't been good enough, but listen, let's just get together for even the next 2 games and just go, right, see this out and get it done. And I don't like to mention him, but Ewan Murray actually made a good point for the first time in his life, where he went, what is so much worse than the Brora result has been the reaction to the Brora result.
I was going to say exactly that. It's a case of sort of making amends for those last 2 games, isn't it? And we didn't even look like doing that.
Yeah, there's just the reaction has been no reaction, which is so much worse because you can get cup upsets, right? You can even get cup upsets to the magnitude of what ours was. But normally...
I was unlucky with a couple on my coupon at the weekend. I'll just add that in.
Oh, well, I'm gutted to hear about it.
But never mind.
But it's one of those situations where you go as a team, right, all come together, we cannot show that this is where we are now. And if anything, the last 2 games have shown that that wasn't a shock result.
No, it wasn't. I mean, Cammy talked about numerous chances that the Pars had, and again, the one to wee Josh Edwards at left back proved a decent opportunity. Cammy, I don't know. I thought it was a case of thinking, from your perspective, that a goal was coming, or you seem to be of the mindset that there was more that fear of having not taken your chances that you feel as though the Pars could have got punished.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you consider those chances, it did seem like a goal would be coming. But then I think when you look at the second half performance from the Pars, other than the kind of Ewan Murray header late on and the Vitas header that went off the bar, we really didn't kind of create the same level of chances that we did. Obviously, the chances earlier on in that first half were clear through and on goal kind of chances, whereas these ones, granted, they were both free headers. I think it was maybe Haring that, in fact, I was going to say one of them, I want to say it was maybe even him, both times that kind of let his marker slip, and that obviously gave Vitas and Ewan Murray their opportunities, but the Pars just never had the kind of same chances in that second half. And I mean, yes, the performance was better, as I've said a few times, but it wasn't that good a performance, and it's just, I felt like times, and there's going to be so many angry Hearts fans in my mentions shortly going, yous are going to be in the Championship next season, but like, I felt yous were there for the taking. And I mean, I know that's rich coming from someone who's seen their team win about 1 in the past 9 games.
No, I get that. I totally get that.
But like, it just seems, much like how we're there for the taking, it just, for once, actually seemed like you were too. When we'd met back in November, it was like a top-of-the-table clash. It didn't seem like either team was there for the taking. Then when we met a bit later on, it was 1-1-0. Yes, the Pars weren't very good on that day, but it didn't seem like either team was there for the taking, whereas this game, it just seemed like both teams could have lost somehow and just made a whole new football result, and it wouldn't have surprised me in the slightest given the form that both teams are in.
No, it wouldn't. I was going to touch on exactly that, mate, because I've got to be honest, I feel as though you have outplayed us on at least 2 of the 3 meetings this season. I actually thought you performed better at Tyney, or had more noteworthy chances at Tyney than you did on Saturday afternoon. But Daniel, I mean, it's not long after half-time that Big Vitas does crash that header off the crossbar. Declan McManus went quite close with an overhead kick, or was that just me? I thought it actually looked sort of nearer than it potentially might have first appeared. But it got to the stage where I was thinking, it's going to have to take for Dunfermline to score in order for us to wake up. Did you get that same feeling? Because just that sentence alone is really damning as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
What are you saying about the Pars?
No, it's more so from our perspective and having to make amends for the last 2 results, mate.
I fully agree. I said this on Twitter after the game. I feel like we were the better side in the second half, as Cammy alluded to. We managed to kind of limit the amount of chances and we were far more dominant. But that would have been hard not to do. If we'd come out and either been as bad or worse, we would have got absolutely battered. So it's not really an achievement that we were better in that second half. It was just emblematic of pretty much the season, where it was like, right, here's another game where we've had an awful first half, a fine second half, we've dropped points, and it was around the 70th minute, 69th minute when Nondwele came on,
That's right, yeah.
And it was like, that's 70 minutes too late. I know that Robbie fucking is the most stubborn man and hates anything that isn't the 4-2-3-1, right? Listen,
he likes a diamond sometimes.
Sometimes, but generally it's only if people are so annoyed at him, then he'll go, right, fine.
He's got to be forced into change.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, I've played Football Manager. 4-2-3-1 Gegenpress wins you everything, right?
Unreal.
So Unreal. I get it, Robbie. Have a wee libero in behind and a Mazzala cutting in. Like, that works fantastically in FM. This isn't
Complete
FM.
wing backs, ball playing defenders.
Exactly.
Unreal.
Inside forwards cutting in, right? This is what we all want, and it would be amazing. Generally, I love a 4-2-3-1. Bayern in the Champions League last season played a 4-2-3-1 for ages, and it was class. But they've got hundreds of millions of pounds.
Look at their personnel in comparison.
But that's the thing. Robbie Nielsen seems to think we've got that level of investment in personnel. So he's like, if I keep doing this, Lewandowski will appear. It'll be class. We'll have Goretzka in the middle of the park and Kimmich spraying balls. What we actually have is Ewan Henderson and Gary Mackay-Steven, who forget what football is most of the time. And you've got a striker who has actually come in, and we've been saying it for so many years, that whenever a striker comes to Hearts, they turn absolutely shit, or they're actually pretty good. They're never just fine.
Till a time.
Yeah, like they're never just kind of coming in and get a goal every 3 games for their whole career. They either start off amazing and then drop off completely, or are never good. Nondwilly so far, at least for now, is in that period of being really good. So just, why would you not start him? But then especially, why would you not change it at half time? I couldn't believe we made 0 changes, and then as soon as that ball hit the bar, as soon as the overhead kick happened, I was like, we've not made any changes, and we're just seeming to be like, nah, we'll ride it out. And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that we're like, no, we'll ride it out because we've got Craig Gordon. And depressingly, that is the case. Not depressingly that we have him, because as I said earlier, I shudder to think about where we'd be without him.
Don't, honestly.
But
he's our most important player without a doubt. I know you like Boyce, but
I think they're very comparable. I think him and Boyce,
of course,
they've been our 2 best players for completely different reasons, but for both winning us points single-handedly. And that was just it. It was like, I love him to death, but I feel bad for him that he has to keep getting us out of jail, with no disrespect to the league. But in this fucking league...
No, totally, mate. And I mean, your mate Ewan Henderson blazed over. Big Pete sent one wide from a corner on the slide. But I'm just left so uninspired. I thought Cammy alluded to the chance earlier where GMS hits it on the half volley, crossing for Liam Boyce. I totally agree with Yari Nandwile. I mean, I've been crying out for 2 up top for months upon end, so I was delighted to see us pick him up. And then the diamond came along. I was thinking, oh, this is good. We'd seem to have a decent alternative for when the 4-2-3-1 doesn't work. But
and whilst the diamond generally hasn't really worked, because it means that GMS has had to be in the 10 and has been shit. Walker's had to either come off the bench and be good, or start and be shit. And Naismith has been in the 10 and been shit. The positive of the diamond have been Boyce and Nandwile together, even though some have been saying they're not really working as a partnership, how a partnership should work in terms of playing off each other and using each other's runs and stuff.
It creates space for Boyce.
Yeah, exactly. By doing their own individual thing, they benefit each other, even if they don't necessarily mean to.
No, of course. And despite all that, I mean, Cammy, I just felt as though Hearts wouldn't score in a month of Sundays. Were you sort of feeling the same as an opposition fan?
I mean, I think, as I said earlier on, as the game got kind of into the latter stages, when Andrea came on, Hearts did come into the game and obviously getting the chances, but not very well. I'm saying they created chances, but they weren't very good chances. Weren't testing Fawn Williams or whatever. I don't think Hearts would have scored. It was just one of those games that obviously it seemed like neither team was going to score. I think we probably could have played another 90 and no team would have scored. It was just kind of one of those games.
I think they could have played up until now and neither would have scored.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's weird. Hearts are quite clearly the highest scoring team in the league, and you kind of expect them just to score a few goals every game. But yeah, it just wasn't to be. And I think you'll have these performances along the way. Obviously, there's going to be Hearts fans again in my mentions after being angry at me earlier on for saying that they were there for the taking. But I mean, they happen when you just don't really have a good day. Obviously, Hearts fans won't think that's acceptable. It's maybe just me supporting what folk will just go, you support a wee team. But, like, you just accept it. It's like there will be games you can't win every game 5-6-0 as much as I think Hearts probably should be in this league. It just happens where things don't go wrong. Obviously, lots of players on international duty beforehand and just back, and whether that made a difference, I don't know. As you mentioned, the changes, there's just so many factors into it. But I think ultimately, you have taken the foot off the gas. The job's, we may as well say it's done. So
I was going to say, I think perhaps it's a pressure thing and sort of half thinking that the job's really done. I don't know. I get this sort of feeling within this squad that it's when things are going well, it's great, but again, it's like you say, the sort of foot off the gas. I've got that impression for a while, and I don't know why they're so cocky. Given we're in this division for a reason, but I mean, it just, I don't know. Daniel, obviously, we've touched on how poor we were offensively. How we've kept a clean sheet, if we're going off it defensively, I will never know, given, like we've said, both Dunfermline centre-halves had opportunities to punish us with practically free headers. How have we still not learnt this lesson, particularly when you and Murray bagged one on our last trip to East End?
Again, I think it's kind of three reasons. One, I think we don't have very good defenders, generally, which I know is such a sweeping statement, right? Because we've got...
It's an understatement of the year.
Yeah, but it's like, I know you could go, well, what are you talking about? You've got Michael Smith, Northern Ireland International, Shea Logan, one of the best players of the last few years when you go back to kind of
farm club.
Yeah, exactly. Like, his run at Aberdeen's been fantastic. Craig Halkett, former Livingston captain. Christoph Berra, 263 appearances for the club. Hey, listen, I've got the fucking stats.
Them out, mate.
Right?
I like it.
I've got them here. And then you've got folk like Mihai Popescu, who did well in the game previously when he was at St Mirren. You've got Eddie White, who was like one of the most hotly tipped youngsters when he was at Leeds and stuff like that.
Oh, you were doing so well till those last two.
No, my point is this. So my point is, but none of them, barring Smith, have actually been consistently good this season. Smith has obviously, as I've said, went off the boil a couple of times, right? Especially in February. Smith just seemed to have the worst month he's ever had at this club. But
like we said, ever since he signed that deal.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Kingsley's been the same. Kingsley's been awful. Well, not awful, but Kingsley has been very poor since he signed his new deal. But listen, Shea Logan did well. Michael Smith did well. Halkett, I feel like his first half was awful. His first two passes were basically at the park.
It's a way of a murder, man.
But I feel like Halkett was actually pretty dominant in the air when he was asked. But generally, you're very right there. Halkett's been so lucky this season that arguably two of our worst players has been his partner. So therefore, he looks better by association.
Than the other.
Yes, exactly. So it's like when Popescu's beside him, you go, fucking hell, at least Halkett isn't he just running about, kicking stuff, falling over and passing the opposition. And when Berra's there, you go, well, at least Halkett can move. Like, he has that going for him. But so often, he's been way below the standard. Eddie White was awful. Was absolutely
like said,
awful.
That counter in behind him countless times. I mean, touching on the Halkett thing, I've said it's unrealistic and there's no chance of happening. I think if Hearts were to make it, their best signing of the summer would be Declan Gallagher.
I agree, but it won't happen. Like, I'm telling you now, it won't happen.
No, you're right. But I was going to ask you, because you've mentioned Shea Logan there. Again, I'm not going to go back on my word because I can't say I'm overly thrilled with the signing, particularly when I saw Cammy Logan on the bench at Ibrox for Cove Rangers. But I did think he was good on Saturday, and you said that he was one of our best 3 performers. I would love to hear your others.
So my other 2 are Herring and Gordon. Because the reason that I give Herring is more just because he looked back to his old self, where it was like, because previously this season, most notably Dundee away and Ayr at home earlier, he just looked like a different human being. It was like, that isn't Peter Herring. Peter Herring doesn't have performances like that.
It was terrible at Dens, like you say.
That's what I mean, yeah, exactly. It just didn't look like him.
Yeah, he was.
Whereas, on the weekend, he didn't do anything flashy, and as Cammy said, he lost his marker quite a few times at set pieces. But generally over the 90, I never felt worried when Herring got the ball, which is what I'm so used to feeling when any other of our midfielders get the ball. I'm like, right, okay, what are you going to do with it? We need to find an avenue here. Whereas on Saturday with Herring, it was like, oh yeah, it's Peter Herring. Like, I saw he had a 97% pass accuracy, and it's not one of those pass accuracies where it's like he just kept passing back to centre halves. He only passed back to the centre halves 20 times out of 137 passes.
How on earth have you come with all this prep? This is the most prepared you've ever been.
I've never been this prepared, ever. It's because you're hosting and I'm showing you up. That's what's happening here.
No, I guarantee it's because you think there was such a lack of action that you think, I'll just chuck in some stats and make it seem as though it was a spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously, because we're going to come to, I imagine next, the moment of the game. Craig Gordon, because he's the best goalkeeper in the country, barring probably the only other person that you could have in it is Alan McGregor. Like, he's the only other keeper who's done well. But I said on Twitter, on midweek, Craig Gordon kept a clean sheet in a World Cup qualifier with Premier and Champions League quality players in front of him, and he had to come back to Aidy White and Craig Halkett in front of him and still managed to keep a clean sheet. That's how good he is.
Hey, maybe Cammy's right in that Vitas claim up against all these Italians, and he's up against Shea Logan. The standards is not the same. It's just not the same. Listen, I think we've done well, lads, to drag out the lack of match action there. But I do have a question for the pair of you. I'll come to you first, Cammy, because it just whenever I see these post-match comments, they honestly it does my boxing. Robbie Nielsen said that he felt as though Hearts players need a decapitation in order to win penalties, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't feel as though we had a reasonable claim.
I've no idea what he's talking about. No. I've no idea what moments he means.
Absolutely no idea.
I mean, I'm racking my brain here. I genuinely have no idea what he's on about.
Good. That's fine. Just wanted to gain both your.
That's not even me. That's not even me saying that as a Pars fan. I genuinely have no recollection of anything that could have been classed as a penalty.
I swear we once called for a handball, but that's not a foul. That's a handball. Like, and I don't even think it was a handball, but I saw a bunch of us claiming it. But it's like, well, that's unrelated to decapitations.
Listen, Cammy, you've got every right to feel the way that you do, because we're going to be biased bastards and we couldn't even see a penalty claim, mate, so don't worry about it. Obviously, the last time you were on, though, we were discussing when Craig Levein was sacked, given the BBC documentary, and the sort of various names that were being bandied about. What do you make of the current scrutiny that Robbie Nielsen's under as an outsider looking in?
Was it that long ago? I was honestly on.
Yeah,
that's
with the
mental.
BBC documentary, yeah.
Yeah, that was a class documentary. I'd got to comment on the first two parts when I was on. Never got to then comment on the third part. But yeah, that was class.
Thanks for that, mate. Thanks for showing us up there.
Obviously, not another Hearts one. But yeah, I think I'd certainly welcome another series like that. But as with Nielsen, I mean, I think it's understandable to an extent, but at the same time, he's a man who knows how to get teams out the Championship. He's done it with yourselves previously. He's going to do it again. He done it at Dundee United last season. He'll be at Dundee next season. He'll take them up.
No, you said Crawford was under a bit of pressure. I was going to ask him, could you see a sort of I don't know, a jaunt to the kingdom in order to get Dunfermline where they arguably belong?
I hope not, because he'll bring Crawford back as assistant. I mean, talking of possible candidates, so a man that I've said, whilst there's people on the Pars forum actually mentioning Craig Levein, I was like, Christ, if we're not bad enough. But someone, in keeping with this actually, I've actually said Stendhal, and now there's a few reasons for this.
The German ownership, innit?
Well, German ownership. Thomas Megel, who is our sporting director and one of the investors, actually played with Stendhal at St. Pauli, so there's already that connection. He's German.
Unbelievable.
From as far as I could tell, Stendhal loves Scotland. He's still out of work, and I mean, I can just see the Pars going for a German manager. Why are we going to pick up? Well, I was going to say John Hughes, just because he's like a typical name that gets linked for jobs, but like I would be fuming if we get Craig Levein or just some diddy like that. Granted, Craig Levein's, well, you'll maybe say he's a diddy. Obviously, he's a manager who's had success at clubs, but I just want to see the Pars do something different. We're a club trying to build ourselves up. I don't want to see us go back to the Middle Ages and pick up some old boy. But yeah, as for going back to the scrutiny about Nielsen, went off on a complete tangent there. I mean, I think you can certainly be upset with the way how things have went for the past few months, but then when you consider the main objectives for Hearts this season was get out the Championship, he's done that. He's going to do it, and you are going to sit there and go, "Oh no, we should have won this and that."
Right, wait.
Let's be honest. What did you really expect? If you were offered
on the line here.
Wait. I knew this was right. Hold on. I knew this was going to happen. So Cammy, I'll speak to you. I'll speak to you. Right?
I hope he gets dogs abuse on Twitter for this.
Cammy, I'll speak to you here because Adam, I think, might just hit you. He'll reach through the screen and hit you. So
I can feel the rage building.
I think so. The problem that a lot of Hearts fans have with the narrative that's currently being put in the media by individuals like, for example, Craig Levein, Chris Sutton spoke about it midweek, and that argument yourself, I totally get it, right? The argument is, Robin Nielsen he would have walked in when he got the job and there would have been a blank bit of paper with one sentence, win the league, right? Everything else would have been completely... It would have just been fucked off because it's like, no,
largely irrelevant.
Yeah, we need to be up here. The problem that most Hearts fans have is that it's not, Adam particularly, is that it's not just the last few results, few performances, even this season, right? It's that this season is kind of a perfect summary of the last 4.5 years. That it's a team that should be massively outperforming what they currently are, with a boardroom of people who are making decisions that many feel they aren't qualified to do, or put trust, faith, whatever you want to call it, in people who perhaps shouldn't be given that level of trust and faith. So me and Adam, listen, we've had arguments on this podcast. We have different views on why Nielsen should go. I understand Nielsen being given more time, and I wouldn't necessarily be against it in the grand scheme of things if I looked at the big picture. However, I understand where Hearts fans are coming from, where it's like, at the end of the day, our budget is so much bigger than not just people in this league, most clubs in the country. For the decline that we've been on, I think it was This Is My Story put on Twitter, if we don't finish in the top 6 next year, it will be in our top 5 worst runs in our club's history in terms of league position, trophies won, etc, 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 points, totals and stuff like that. So Adam will just kick off at you and go, no, it's just this fucking media thing. Whereas I totally get where you're coming from, and I think a lot of Hearts fans do. However, it's more that this season just is like, many people knew this was going to happen, which is worse than it actually happening. Adam, is that fair? Or am I just being too nice, as people say on Twitter? I'm just apparently a budge happy clapper, and like, I just get dogs abuse. Me and Thomas got ripped apart for last week's comments. Do you think that's fair, or would you say no, that's actually quite a good summary?
Do you know, I'm too caught up in the exciting rumours that are swirling around at the minute.
Don't say exciting rumours and then Derek McInnes in the same fucking sentence, please. Do not say that.
No, do you know, he wasn't the one I was going to mention.
Okay.
As for that summary, yeah, do you know, Cammy, how many times would that come
it's
into
happening
college?
anyway.
No,
It's happening anyway.
No, I just want to ask Cammy a simple question. How many times would I come into college depressed, given Hearts at the weekend? I can think of one instance when I actually came in to Marie's class on a Monday with a smile on my face, and that was after we pumped Celtic 4-0. As for the rest of it, I think for the most part, I was dour-faced because we're gash. And
So how's this Robbie Nielsen's fault?
Well, see, this is where I agree.
He's trolling now.
Right, no. So this is where I get the argument, because I've said all season that Robbie Nielsen cannot fix 4.5 years of mismanagement in a single season. Right?
It's all because he left. This is the problem.
That is the thing, yeah. Literally since the day he left.
There you go, Cammy. There's your answer.
However, the argument that a lot of people are using is... Well, actually, I would kind of just use this argument. I love Robbie Nielsen, right? I know a lot of people don't. I know a lot of people actually dislike the guy, so a part of the anger towards him is fueled from that. I love him.
I'm 50-50.
Yeah,
I love him.
I love the guy. Nothing's going to change that. People will hate me for that, but I can view this season aside, what he's contributed to this club is so much more. And he's still going to win us the league, regardless. So he's still technically won a thing. But my stance is just that you can't be the manager of a football club, have the worst result in that club's history, then have a shocking result the next week, then a pretty poor result the week after, and survive it. So I'm not happy about it, but I understand the need for Nielsen to go. But yes, Nielsen is only a cog in a machine. It's the actual machine that needs to be changed, which is the way the entire club is run.
He's a star in a galaxy of fuck-ups.
Yes, that's exactly.
So I'm going to jump in here again, and Adam is going to probably run through and battle me here. But when you look at Robbie Nielsen's record as Hearts manager, now correct me if I'm wrong here. So he took over and he won you the championship. He then took you to a third place finish. He then fucked off to MK Dons. He's returned when the club's in turmoil. He's taken you back up again. How can you be raging about that? I take that at the past all day, every day.
Oh my God.
But
you're painting the pretty picture. You didn't see Birkirkara, Brora Rangers, Alloa. I've literally never faced abuse like this in the past week. I don't want to hear it.
Right, hi Cammy. Right, listen Cammy, you and me can have a discussion, right? Because I get that, and that's kind of my view, right? Which is why I love him. Because it's like, yeah, generally, as a manager, I saw a thing where people were trying to show how good Derek McInnes has been as a manager because he's got the third highest points total and stuff like that. Robbie Nielsen's 5th.
Robbie Nielsen's had fewer games. He's only managed one full season in the Prem.
But this is the point. And this is, I don't understand how this happens every time, where I'm arguing for Nielsen, when I don't even necessarily agree with it. But my only argument, and off the back of what Cammy's point is, as Thomas said last week, I wouldn't be against Nielsen getting a run of fixtures, right? But I'm not saying that I want that. I'm saying that I wouldn't massively kick off if it happened. I would be disappointed. But
good for you recruits, though, mate.
But this is the thing. It's more emblematic of, we've just seen today that a new head analyst has been asked. Where and stuff.
What a buzz that was! I loved all the replies to that that post.
But that's what I mean. It's more that we need to build something, and I do get Cammy. You would probably respond to this with, "Well, build something under Nielsen," and that's the thing. I'm not against that. I think Nielsen would get us back to be in eventually a top 4 side, top 3 side, whatever you want to say, because Robbie has proved that he can do that with this club. As you say. First full season, 3rd, left us in 2nd, won the championship, the best championship team that the league's ever seen, and we're now about to fucking fall over the line doing it again. But a lot of the issues that people have is more about with the style of football, with the way that we're playing, with, as Adam said, recruits. His recruitment this time around has been pretty disastrous. Craig Gordon, that anybody could have decided to make that a non-relay I've really only been...
Stephen Kingsley, maybe.
Kingsley, yeah, overall, you'd say yeah. And then Nonswilly has been good. Shea Logan has had a game. And you go, that's good.
I'm trying to think of others racking my brain.
But
I noticed Jordan Roberts is in the form of his life for Motherwell. That's a good laugh.
Yeah, exactly. But it's more the bigger picture, and I feel bad for Nielsen because, again, I've said this on Twitter, I feel the personal attacks to him are ridiculous. He's not doing this deliberately. He cares about the club. He wants...
Josh Ginnelly's another. Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Be on Robbie's side.
Yeah. He wants to do well for the club. It would be stupid for him to go, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get in the position where we win the league and then fuck it right at the end. Like, he's not going to do that deliberately. He's going to try and win the league. So, as it's become the joke of this podcast that we have totally different views despite kind of getting to the same conclusion, I totally understand what your argument is, Cammy, and it is the argument of most people just now, where they look at the results and they go, how on earth can you complain? Whereas it's more like, it's one of those situations, listen, Newcastle are my English team. It happens a lot with Newcastle where people go, well, what are they expecting? Newcastle fans want Champions League football every year. They want Europa League every football. And it's like, no, that isn't the problem. That isn't the situation. The situation is much more intimate, and it is unfair for people who are asked about it who don't watch it and then they get dogs abuse like Adam is currently giving you for posing questions. But listen, it's such a complicated debate. There is no right answer to it because there's so many factors with it. Cammy, your argument could be completely justified, be proven right if we give Nielsen time, and then everybody will look back and go, God, mind that year where we were just like, we need to get him out, blah blah blah. But it could go the way that Adam thinks, where it's like we go up, come straight back down, become a yo-yo club, or it could happen what I think, and is that regardless next season, whoever we've got in charge, we're not going to get relegated, but I don't think we're going to have a successful season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the simple way to sum it all up is football fans are arseholes.
Yes.
But like, obviously, as much as I've kind of just defended Robbie there, I personally wouldn't have him in charge next season. I can understand Hearts fans' reservations. I know that goes completely against what I've said. Hang on. No, let me clarify something. Hearts fans are wanting Robbie gone like now and have wanted him gone for weeks while he's been top of the table.
Don't you
I can't
dare
understand.
Say let him see out the season and give him that medal.
No.
Don't you dare.
Why punt him for like 2 games? What's the point?
Oh, God.
But like... let him go out on a high and then just leave it at that and then go and start afresh. I think what Daniel says is probably true. You're just looking at it all doom and gloom thinking he's going to get do a breaking in the Premiership here. It won't happen. Hearts, as I've said, have the budget. Obviously a drastically different situation to when you went up last time. Granted, there was lots of youth in that team and it just seemed to work really well. You now have a bit of, I'm saying cash behind you, but like you kind of get what I mean. It's completely different last time.
Yeah. We are in a much
but like, I could see Hearts being an attractive team. Hearts are an attractive team even in the Championship, but I can't see Nielsen being there next season purely because I think he'll end up at Dundee. But
interesting. I think he's Dunfermline bound.
I hope not, as I said earlier on. But like,
Stendhal's knocked back the Pompey gig. Now it'll be the Pars.
See,
well, that's the rumour. Today, funnily enough, you say that. The rumour is today on Kickback, so you know it's definitely happening. That's what's happening. Robbie's going to get to the end of the season and be told, right, thank you, you've done what was asked, we're moving in a different direction. And apparently, an unnamed manager has verbally basically agreed to be the manager and is already putting in place stuff.
Well, it's funny you say that because I did get a message from a listener, and it's obviously this whole verbal agreement thing. However, the listener, who will remain unnamed because I don't want to give out the source like that, he said, seen that post from the guy on Kickback, I have spoken to a few of the players and they have all said that Nielsen is staying and there's been no chat whatsoever about someone else coming in. However, going back to the original Kickback rumour, I think the manager in question is Derek McInnes because there's been various names linked to the post in recent weeks. Derek McInnes, who I thought his comments were actually really interesting on the panel for Rangers versus Cove Rangers. No, because he was talking about if an exciting project came up, he'd look to get back in kind of as soon as. We've talked about Alex Neil as well with the Joe Savage link and whatever, but I wanted to ask you, Daniel, going back to kickback again, because Duncan Ferguson is the latest one that's been plucked out of thin air. What do you make of that?
Right. First of all, I just want to quickly say, Derek McInnes gave the most stereotypical answer you can possibly give. He went, I'm enjoying my time out there now with the family, playing some golf, but if a club comes up, I'll take it. He's not going to go
an exciting project. They didn't say any club. Say Stirling Albion get rid of Kevin Rukovic tomorrow. He's not going to hop along through there, is he?
No, but no manager's going to stand on press for the first time they've been on TV since the sacking and go, Ken, what? I'm done, lads. I'm alright. I'm enjoying golf. It's class. But
he and Levine will end up as Sports Sound regulars.
Exactly. But to answer your Duncan Ferguson comments, first of all, it's not going to happen.
Of course it's not.
Right?
I'd like to think we can attract better clients, better applicants than that.
Mainly just because I think his relationship with the SFA.
He seems to have a good gig at Everton with. He and Carlo Ancelotti are pretty tight, aren't they?
Well, this is the thing. He's an Everton legend. He clearly is loving life with Ancelotti because who wouldn't? It's Carlo Ancelotti. Why would you want to come up here and work with Lee McCulloch? Right? I know that McCulloch was probably leaving Nielsen. But from a football, tactical, game perspective, it would be fucking disastrous, right? Because he's got no experience in management. I don't know what he's like in terms of... All I remember is that he brought on Moise Keane and then took him off like 12 minutes later, and it was an awful situation, and Moise Keane eventually left Everton to go to Juve.
Tremendous.
It wasn't.
No, it was.
It literally ruined the guy's career at a club. It was not tremendous.
For the sheer shithousery alone, I thought that was amazing. Do you know what? The whole Duncan Ferguson talk, to me, it just seems like if Celtic were to appoint Roy Keane. It's like
what it is Hearts fans going, we've got too soft a team.
But he wouldn't have a Scooby what to do on the park.
Yeah, it's like Hearts fans are complaining that we've got too soft a team. They deck in what they're doing. They deck in what it means to play for the club. They just want Duncan Ferguson to come in and bam everybody up, batter everybody, replace them with 11 Roy Keanes on the park and him, and just us kick the shit out of people, and then we might get relegated. So no is your answer to Duncan Ferguson.
Cammy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is definitely the Hearts Daz at this rumour. It is, as you say, Adam, it's the Roy Keane equivalent for the Celtic rumours. It's just weird. I think everyone wants to kind of see a lot of passion and stuff, but they're not wanting... It's just weird. It's kind of a bygone era, I guess you could say, of having teams like that. Yes, you do have some teams who are tough tackling and that, but you don't need some former football hardman. Why not throw Vinnie Jones's name into the ring? And it's just a weird kind of obsession that folk have when managers like. I like having a tough tackling a midfielder, but I'm not wanting a boy who goes headbutting folk.
Yeah,
like it's not quite the kind of player I'm
wanting. Said that on Sports Sound recently as well, didn't he? Where you can't really shout and go through the players as much anymore.
Yeah, football's totally changed. Even in the last decade, never mind them since Ferguson stopped playing. Like it's a totally different environment, and it's why the Roy Keane to Celtic rumours, the Ferguson to us rumours, they just will never materialise because it would be a disaster from a footballing point of view.
No, of course. And, listen, before we wrap up, Cammy, I've got to establish something because we mentioned Derek McInnes and his comments. Obviously, Daniel and I have split loyalties. I mean, it's not exactly tricky to guess sort of what side's which. But when it comes to Derek McInnes as a potential Heart and Midlothian manager, which side of the fence are you on? Do you see it as a good appointment, a shrewd manager and would elevate us like Aberdeen, or is it a case of him being a more experienced Robbie, as I've seen bandied about on Twitter?
I mean, you thought Robbie Nielsen's football's bad enough. You're wanting to bring in a guy whose team could score for 10 games.
Yes, Cammy! Yes, Cammy!
I mean, yes, McInnes obviously had what seemed a really secure job at Aberdeen. he was always kind of just doing what he had to. He was finishing third, obviously was finishing second and stuff.
Football, their fans said, didn't
yeah,
they?
I mean, it was safe. He was doing it all well, and I think that maybe elevated people's perception of him. And yes, he had to obviously beat the team's below to ensure he had that position, but I'm not sure. I think there's certainly something there. Maybe Stephen Robinson's a bit of a different shout. He obviously took Motherwell and kind of grew them, but it's
third
like
on
both.
my shortlist. That'd be like bottom of the rung for me, if you like.
Like both Robinson and McInnes both kind of hit a wall, and like McInnes obviously got the kind of cup wins and stuff, but couldn't quite elevate Aberdeen that extra step. And it was kind of the same with Robinson. Obviously got them to the multiple finals and
two in the same season, I think.
Like, yeah, and they just granted they were both against Celtic, if I'm not wrong. So you can't really be too upset when you lose two finals against Celtic, who won 12 trophies on the bounce or whatever.
Thanks for reminding us of that. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
But like, yeah, it's a tough one. I'm always a fan of trying something different, as I think going by my Stendhal comment of the past, obviously not different to Hearts fans who have seen who Stendhal is, but just actually opening it up and seeing who's out there. Obviously, when there was that whole documentary that we kind of referenced earlier on, there was seemingly all these applicants from far and wide, and you just wonder who these folk are. And it's just, you'd like to see something different, but you could certainly understand, given the kind of typical Scottish pessimism, why you want to play it safe. But I think teams can't afford to play it safe. Yes, you're probably not going to dethrone Celtic or Rangers unless you have like a Leicester City fairy tale season, but there's no reason why you can't. This is sounding like some inspirational speech that you, I don't know, see on some film or something, but like, there's no reason why you can't like dream and just kind of hope for better things. And yeah, McInnes, probably not for me. Robinson, I've mentioned him again, probably not for me, but if one of the two of them got it, I don't think I'd be too surprised.
Well, I think ending it on a big heroic speech couldn't be a better way after the dross that we saw at the weekend to end on some positivity.
But we'd get a better one if Duncan Ferguson finished it. He'd get the boys right up for it.
That's true, and then they'd go and get all sent off and we'd forfeit every game possible. But yeah, so somehow, lads, we've managed to... We thought, okay, lucky to get past 10 minutes. We've been going for nearly an hour and a half.
Come on! I knew I could do it. Yeah.
Well done, Adam. You should be very...
That'll be a first for you, Adam.
Well done.
Lasted that long. Hey, my parents are listening to this.
That's a more us way of ending it. That's more on brand for the quality of content that you get here. But yeah, if you have enjoyed this, we are at Perth to Paisley. You can get us on everything like that. We're also on YouTube. All just search at Perth to Paisley. Cammy, thank you so much for coming back on and for being our first ever returning guest. Where can people get you online and on social media?
So yeah, on Twitter at Cammy Anderson. Obviously my name's Cammy Anderson, so just take the ON off and there you go. That's my Twitter at, nice and simple. You'll get to see me moan about the powers and just general kind of championship nonsense there. And yeah, also do the Pure Championship podcast, as I've said a few times. So that's on the kind of Pure Football feed, just all your usual podcasty places.
Fantastic. Adam, where can they get you going absolutely ballistic with the hashtags?
They can get me going ballistic at the hashtags and see all my tweets regarding Daniel Stendhal's promotion party bus with Dunfermline next season at Adam T. Kendo. And yourself, mate? I
am at DMcIver22. We'll be back next week to inevitably discuss Hearts having another bad performance on a Friday night on the BBC. It's going to be amazing. Can't wait. And we'll see you all next time.
Keep the faith. Money JTs!